Formula One season may be over, but Grid Talk is anything but, as we bring you a special episode today. We are joined by a professional racing driver and someone who's co-founded a very innovative new racing series. Welcome back to Grid Talk podcast, everybody. Hosting today will be me, George Howson, and joining me are sports journalist Dev Tyagi.
Hi, pleasure to be here.
Very glad to have you, Dev. Motorsports commentator Soumil Arora.
Hey folks, hope you're having a good day.
Very much so, very much so. And our special guest, co-founder of X1 Racing, Aditya Patel.
Hi, George. Thanks for having me here. And hi, Dev and Soumil. Good to have you guys on as well. I'm looking forward to the next few minutes. It should be fun.
We are very much looking forward to it as well. So for those that don't know Aditya, I guess I should pass it over to you really to introduce yourself. I mean, the innovative racing series co-founder and the professional racing driver is both you. So just introduce yourself to the people that don't know you.
So to start with, my name is Aditya Patel. I'm from India, born in Chennai in the south of India. And well, I kind of started out in motorsport by being a spectator at racetracks. My father used to race cars himself, just in the Indian Touring Car Championships. And I guess that kind of built some kind of curiosity in me to kind of put my foot in a race car, to kind of get my foot in motorsport and see what it's like. And when go-karting picked up in the early 2000s is when I got into it in India, when go-karting picked up in India. And yeah, there was no turning back from there. I took part in multiple championships as I grew up in India, some around Asia as well, in Malaysia, Indonesia, and kept moving forward from there. Had the good fortune to then start racing single-seaters internationally in 2008 after a stint in India for a couple of years. And then I shifted to touring cars and GT cars. So been in touring cars, GT cars since 2009 onward. And well, obviously the X1 Racing League, like you mentioned, it is an innovative series. It's something that my business partners and I have been working on for quite a few years, finally kicked off. The first season was exactly a year ago, and we were fairly happy with the success, and we know it's something that we can build on. But the idea came about more in terms of, what could we do to change motorsport, Indian motorsport? How can we get it to be more spectator friendly, more so for the Indian audience? Because, there's so many forms of sport in India which are now becoming rather short. The IPL is a good example, the 2020 format, because all you need is to get somebody's attention span for a short period of time. Motorsport, obviously, the races are short anyway if you're not watching an endurance race. So Formula One, for example, is a 90-minute race. But it still needs to be shorter than that, more action-packed, a little bit more drama. Everybody loves some drama, and Indians, because of Bollywood, drama is a huge part of every household. So, we had to do something that would bring in the drama element. And yeah, we kind of put together what was called the X1 Racing League, and we're looking forward to now the years to come as the league goes forward.
That's all really great to hear. I will ask one more question before I throw this to Soumil and Dev. So from what I understand, this is the world's first and only franchise-based racing series. So how does that work, and how did you come up with the idea to do a franchise system? Because it's not something we see in motorsport, it's something we normally see in American sports like basketball or baseball, that kind of thing.
Well, I mean, obviously there is in India the IPL, which was hugely successful. There are multiple franchise-based leagues in India which are hugely successful. None of them are motorsport. And there was someone who tried it in the past, but I think it may have been a bit too early. India just wasn't ready for it at the time. And we felt like things were starting to pick up. The car culture is definitely picking up in India hugely. I'm sure Dev and Soumil will agree as well. The people's dreams are now becoming realities. Cars are becoming more accessible. What we used to see as posters in your bedroom as kids are now actually being cars in garages in many households now. So, this kind of really made us realize that, it is a good time to go ahead and take this league forward. And franchise-based leagues just seem to be a way to go in India, which is why we chose to go with that particular format. And so far, it seems like it could be successful as we move forward, because everybody, again, at the end of the day, if you live in India, you want to support your city, you want to back the city that you grew up in, that you're passionate about. You want to back the people you're passionate about, and that's what the country is about. And in a country where the culture is so diverse, the country itself is so diverse. If you go from Chennai to Hyderabad to Mumbai to Delhi, the languages change, the people change, the cities changed a fair bit. So that's what makes this kind of franchise-based league quite special.
Just that when you tread up north, then the decibel and the pitch also increases a lot.
Yeah, they've moved that.
Nuts. But yeah, really well said there, man.
No prizes for guessing that Dev is from Delhi in the north of India. So
You can hear him from everywhere. You can hear him from anywhere on the racetrack. You can hear Dev. He's everywhere.
especially with these quiet ranges in F1, you know.
Exactly. Actually, really.
Oh, sorry, go on, Soumil. You're going to ask a question.
No worries. Coming back to X1, one thing that really impressed me last year was that it's not just on-track racing that's a part of the big arsenal that X1 Racing has got. It's also the esports side. That's personally, that's something that I tend to take more interest in on a personal note. But last year we saw the X1 Racing Esports League coming in as a precursor for the main event. Of course, with the global lockdown coming in, we saw the expansion towards Ultimately, a more home-based series with everyone racing together. What are the plans, Aditya, for that? It's something that really fascinates me, that your attention is not just for the on-track product, but also towards this emerging new market that people are starting to associate more often with competitive motorsport.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you bring up a good point. I completely missed the esports side of it. Well, leading into the season last year, obviously, we wanted to, what started out as something that we wanted to do as a marketing activity for the X1 Racing League itself. We said, instead of doing your usual radio, newspaper ads and TV ads and things like that, which cost you huge amounts of money in India, we kind of figured that we could do esports in a manner where we could offset a lot of that cost with sponsorships, because esports is picking up. Everybody knows that. So that turned out to be our marketing, where we went from city to city. We had people come and participate in colleges, in malls, in IT parks, and entry was free for everybody. So the interest was huge. I mean, who doesn't want to jump behind a steering wheel and drive a car around a racetrack? And after they do it once, you realize that it's quite close to what it is like in real life, right? And you realize that the coordinates are almost the same. You're using your right foot to accelerate, in this case your left foot to brake. You turn the steering wheel, the car on your screen turns. So people loved it, and people of all ages. There was in Bombay, I think there was a lady who was in her mid to late 70s. In many cities, we had kids who were 10, 12 years old who could barely see over the steering wheel.
Exactly, yeah.
So that was quite cool. It worked really well in terms of marketing the product for us, marketing X1 Racing League, because we had a very short period of time to do it, and we were really tight on budgets as well. Then moving on into 2020, we always wanted to take esports online. We were not only going to stick to the offline format that we did in 2019. The lockdown really accelerated it. Our plan was to do it in July, but when pretty much the entire world went into a lockdown in March, we just jumped at the opportunity and we kicked off Ultimate E, which for you guys who probably don't know, George and Dave, basically it's like these online racing championships that you've been watching, the race, etc., etc. But we did it, which was very India centric. We started off by doing race drivers versus gamers, a format which people found quite interesting, because we put the real race drivers against the guys who were the so-called self-proclaimed gamers, who turned out to be really good and showed the race drivers how it's done. That's also really cool, and that's something that we're taking forward into 2021, because we know that the X1 Racing esports will be hard to do, particularly in this kind of global scenario where you can't expect someone to come jump into a sim, get out, and then somebody else to jump in straight after. Everyone's going to be a bit skeptical about it in terms of hygiene, etc., etc. Yeah, the plan is to keep it going online. We do have some interesting formats in place. It's going to make it more viewership friendly. It's going to involve many, many more people and possibly teams. It will be interesting to watch and for you guys to see how it pans out. I think Soumil already knows what direction we're going in. He can probably guess from what I'm saying.
Yeah, but it really amazes me. It's good to see so many different aspects to it. I mean, you're not just a racing driver and not just an entrepreneur of a big racing league. It's also going in different directions altogether. It's amazing. Different sides of the story that I think eventually end to the same end goal of promoting the sport in the country and beyond, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, you want people to know more about the sport. And one way of doing it is just putting them in the driver's seat. So if you can't put them in the race car, put them in a sim.
Exactly.
And it's as close as it gets.
Yeah, esports really growing, and it's good to see want to embrace that. Especially, I mean, this is the perfect time to do it as well. You know, it's hard to get people on the same. Women in the mid-70s can do it, driving the cars itself. Dev, is there anything you want to ask?
Yeah. So the first season was really fantastic. You know, it was really special to be part of the few, the select part of the opportunity to have gotten to cover it. And it was fantastic. My only question is there a plan to increase perhaps the number of cities as we go along, for example, 2021 or 2022? Because what I fundamentally mean by this question is that, and no offense to Delhi or Bombay or Bangalore or Chennai, who are still, like the big stars in Bombay, but, a lot of fabulous talent in India. Like, for example, you see cricket. Dhoni never came from Bombay or Delhi, he came from Ranchi, MS Dhoni. So George is a cricketer. And in this country, if you don't know his name, then possibly they might just cancel your, your visa or everything. Just a joke. So,
Yeah. You're not Indian anymore. If you don't know the name.
I'll have
no,
to look all
I
this up.
am. I'm just. So the whole point is that I think for just a thought that for greater interest as we go along, is there a plan to to increase the number of cities? Like, for example, let's say Jaipur, and let's say Ludhiana, why not? Or a Lucknow or a Patna, something like that.
No, in fact, it's a good question. We did speak. We wanted to do it in the first year. We wanted Chandigarh in the first year. There was someone who had keen interest, but I think later on there was someone who had more interest in Delhi for the north, and so we just kind of kept it in that particular direction. And we had to stick to 6 teams, which is why you only saw very limited cities and most of the metros. And going forward, we are going to move to 8 teams. You'll see, okay, I can't really put Pune in a category of a small city, it's a big city.
Yeah.
And the likelihood of seeing cities like Chandigarh, Lucknow, and then cities like Calcutta, etc. Calcutta is also a big city, but that's pretty high. But again, just to touch upon esports, that's where we're looking into tier 2 and tier 3 cities to come on board and pick teams up. So that should be interesting as a start. That's where we'll really get a feeler as to what kind of interest it really is there in these cities. And it's the most basic way of finding talent. You just go set yourself up there in a tier 2, 3 or tier 3 city. It costs them absolutely nothing to come and participate. And through Ultimate E, we actually found some talent this year. We've actually put them in go-karts and race cars. A couple of them have performed really, really well, and we're nurturing them and taking them forward.
Yeah, it's really good to see you looking for that talent as well. I mean, India's a country of about 1.3 billion people, something like that, and there's not been that many top-level racing drivers to come out of the country. But it's good to see X1 really, trying to find that talent and nurture it. I think Force India, back when they were a team in Formula One, they were trying to do the same thing, but it never quite worked out. But it's far from just an Indian series. I believe there's some top-level European drivers that are in X1 as well. I think there's quite a few. Can you run us through those?
Yes, we do have. So each team has 2 international drivers, and it's one male driver, one female driver. So when it comes to male drivers, I think the guys that you probably would recognize would be someone like an Oliver James Webb, who's from the United Kingdom. So he's well known around the world, not just in the UK or in Asia or in America. He's well known. He's a very good driver, top guy to work with as well. Then we have Mikkel Jensen, who did really well this year, actually. He was teammates with Nick De Vries in the LMP2 championship. They won quite a few races, and if I'm not mistaken, I think the championship as well. So he did really well this year. Among the female drivers, we have Alice Powell, who won some races in the W Series last year. Rahel Frey, who's extremely experienced. Pippa Mann, who's raced in the Indy 500. So it's a good mix of drivers, male and female. And drivers like this, honestly, if you pair them with the young up-and-coming Indian drivers, these are someone they look up to. We also had Narain Karthikeyan, but we don't have 6 Narain Karthikeyans. We have 1 Narain Karthikeyan, so he was there in one team. Karun unfortunately couldn't make it because of his commitments with Sky Sports and Formula One last year, but we hope to have him in the future. And there are drivers. I mean, we had Arjun Maini, we had Kush Maini, And these are drivers that the young Indians look up to. They're doing very well for themselves in international championships. And I think it sparked a lot of interest amongst talent from around the country, but it's also sparked a lot of interest amongst potential sponsors, potential team owners, potential investors. We're seeing a lot of people coming on board and not just supporting us, but supporting drivers. Indian drivers are now starting to get some sponsors to race abroad. And we're so happy that it's come through our league. And this definitely will grow in the years to come.
Could I just add one point to what Aditya was saying? So I was really thrilled to interact with Akhil Bindra. It was fantastic to talk to him. And George is somebody who I really hope, as an Indian, as his fellow Indian, he does really well, and makes the Indian flag,
Yeah.
takes it to all elections like there has, and he's incredible. And once again, it's really special
Yeah,
that this is
yeah,
happening.
Akhil's doing well as well. He did really well in the GT4 championship last year. He's
Yeah.
driving cars, George. So there's so much good talent in India, but at the end of the day, the biggest roadblock are the costs when it comes to
Yeah.
racing in Formula One. The drivers who can fund it to a certain extents themselves are able to go a long way. What you need at a junior level is just a lot of track time, and track time costs money, particularly if you want to do it with a proper team in a proper car. It's usually in Europe. So it just costs a lot of money. And I think that's where people have been struggling from India. But going forward, I'm sure we'll see more drivers start to come out. And I'm sure we'll see more talent. Like you said, we have 1.2, 1.3 billion people. But then again, right, China also has just a few drivers. They don't
Exactly.
have, right? So I think it's more than the talent is there, but there's more to it than just having the talent.
But what partly comes into that as well is the esports, because that's a lot more accessible and a lot cheaper than actual physical track time. So that can provide a platform as well going forward.
Absolutely, I think, and Soumil also knows this well. Esports. When we started off last year, we knew there were championships around the world, but it just wasn't as big as it is now. In a
Yeah.
year, it's grown massively. You've got top racing drivers taking part. You've got gamers who've taken it to another level. You've got championships now that are so aspirational to take part in as esports championships. And like you said, yeah, esports in the future is going to be something that's really big.
Absolutely, yeah, and I think it's fantastic as well. It's about having a male and female driver as well, because getting women into top level motorsport is something that I think needs to happen, and then it's getting better. It's getting there, but there's a long, long way to go. We sometimes see them crop up in Formula 3. We've got the W Series now, but that's a controversial subject in itself. So having something like what you guys have got is really, I think, no, honestly, I think it's really forward thinking. I really like to hear stuff like that.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, let's see how it goes. But again, like I told you, I think the last time we spoke, right, we've been working on this for 3 years before we kicked off. And as we were working on it, we heard about the W Series, and we were like, oh, what's this? It's our idea on one hand is to men and women on the same platform race with each other and against each other, help each other and race against and compete against each other. And then here you have this platform which I have nothing against, but it's purely just women, right? And all this while we've been trying to promote equality in the sport, which means men and women are equal, give women equal
Exactly.
opportunities in the same car with the same teams. And we saw that really helped when women had the same car and the same teams. They were able to match and even better some of the male drivers in those teams, right? And we're talking about better some of the international male drivers. So that just goes to show that the talent is there. And do we really need segregation? I don't know. It
I don't
helped.
think
It
so.
helped for sure. I mean, it is helping these women in many ways, but yeah, I don't know.
I have one question, Aditya. I was wanting to know, so how difficult or easy was it to, should I use the term, convince a lot of people who are aware of the brief history that Formula One had in India? How easy was it to get them convinced to join X1? Let's say, for example, someone like Michelle Gatting, who needs no introduction because in Europe she needs no introduction. But
Yeah.
and it was a pleasure to interact with her as well in the first season, which is the 2019. So, how did you manage that?
I mean, there's not much convincing to do when it comes to, particularly with the female drivers and the ones who we had. They're there to race against the men. That's what they want to do. They want to race against the men and they want to prove themselves. Pipa Man was the first one who jumped on board and said, I'm all out to support you guys because this is what I want to see. I want to see women race against men on a level playing field on an equal platform. A year after that is when we heard about the W Series, and we saw that there were statements made as well by
Yeah,
her about that, and she wasn't 100% for it. That's when we knew we had her full support for something like this. But again, all that being said, I mean, I have nothing against the W Series. They will find it gives women a platform to kind of really find themselves, and they are doing a good job in terms of giving them. Next year they're racing with Formula One, so you take them to these big weekends, and if I'm not mistaken, their drive is fully paid for. They're not paying anything to
exactly,
race, right? So it's a
exactly.
great opportunity that way to have a lot of young girls actually come up and at least first get themselves into a series like that before then moving into, say, an FIA F3, or something of a bigger
Hmm,
platform. But I guess only time will tell how that works.
Right. Great.
Yeah.
exactly.
No, that's great to hear. Yeah. Soumil, is there something you want to ask?
Absolutely. Moving away from X1 racing a little bit and coming back to more of the driving side of Ditya. I think you're one of the very few people in India who's done GT3 racing. I personally am a huge fan of the way the whole GT3 structure is organized, the kind of customer racing procedure. It seems a bit unlikely to have GT3 racing here in India because of the astronomical costs. But what was that whole experience like? Driving for Audi and a brand you're still associated with today, and even taking part in such big events abroad. It must be quite something, right? What do you think it'll take to get GT3 racing here?
I mean, we will definitely see GT3 racing in the future in India for sure. We have, from what we've read, I'm sure you've read it also as well. We have
Hmm,
a few new circuits cropping up, and all these
exactly.
circuits
I
are
was just
GT3
about to
friendly.
ask about
Exactly.
that.
So and I think, like I said, through X1, we've seen a few people come on board with us who are potential promoters as well, and this is something that we're quite excited for in the future, because then you could probably see more championships. You could see, I mean, I don't know if we will, but I'm sure at some point we'll see GT3, we'll see Formula E, hopefully Asian Le Mans. We have the circuits to do it. We just need the promoters, we just need the interest, and fortunately we're starting to see that. We're starting to see it
Hmm.
now. It's not just your usual manufacturers or your tire manufacturers who are running championships that you're going to see in the future. So that's good. To answer the first part of your question, what it was like in GT3 cars, I absolutely loved it. I switched quite early. Everyone was on this path to Formula One, and I kind of realized that it's not going to be so easy to do. At the end of the day, you need a lot of money. You may have sponsors, but you need a lot of personal backing. So I did try my hand in touring cars, and I loved it. And that's what kind of led to the GT3 route, and partnered with Audi India. They were looking for an Indian talent, and we've had some great times since then. We've taken part in some really difficult championships and been put in some super tough situations as well. When I took part in the ADAC GT Masters, which is probably the toughest GT championship in the world.
Yeah,
and and that was my first year in GT3 cars, and we were in a team that had never run the Audis before, and it was, for all of us, it was a new situation, and I'm sitting there like, don't look at me. I mean, uh, I'm even newer than you guys are here, but we did well. We on a grid of 30-35 cars, our best result was sixth, and we were quite competitive in the last race weekend. We were again seventh. So I mean, in GT Masters, those were good results back then. Then the next year in the International GT Open, I think we won a race. I qualified on pole. We had quite a few podiums, so it was great. I mean, I absolutely enjoyed, again, going back to that childhood dream. You never imagined that that poster on the wall, the Ferraris, the Lamborghinis, the Mercedes, are going to be the cars that are rubbing doors with you, right? You're going bumper to
exactly.
bumper with those cars that were once a poster on your wall, and now it's boom bang here and there and passing a few of them. So that was, every now and then I'd have to kind of tell myself, well, these are the kind of cars I'm racing, these are the kind of cars I'm driving. It's quite cool when you think about it that way. So I absolutely enjoy it. And 2020 obviously was tough. 2019, I had my focus on X1, so I had to take a back seat from that. Hopefully, jump back into a GT car soon. That's what I'm looking to do.
Indeed.
Fair enough. Really good to hear. Really good to hear.
You were
Another series I want to ask about, and this is Formula One. So this is quite a difficult one for you to answer, probably because the series are very different. But what do you think that Formula One could learn from X1 racing? Is there anything in particular that's in X1 that you think, actually, we should see this rolled out in F1? This could improve the racing, makes things closer, make the teams more secure, that kind of thing.
I mean, we have seen discussions in Formula One when it comes to things like reverse grids, but honestly, even when we thought about it, we didn't want to be anything like Formula One. Formula One, they are their own form of motorsport in many ways, and there's really nothing that we see as a comparison. I mean, at the end of the day, X1 racing still needs to really prove itself for us to be able to say, this is what Formula One needs to do to be as successful as us. So millions of viewers watch Formula One, right? And that's where we want to get in the future. We feel like this entertaining format will help. We definitely do have some good cars coming in next year. We'll still have more or less the same drivers coming in, and we'll take it forward from there. And I guess time will tell. But what can Formula One learn from us? Put some women in your cars.
Shots fired. But you're not wrong. You're not wrong. You're not wrong at all.
Yeah, put Jamie Chadwick in one of the Mercs and let's see how she gets along.
Yeah, let's see how she compares to Lewis Hamilton. Let's find out. I want to see how George Russell and Lewis Hamilton compare in the same car in the same weekend. But there you go.
And probably find a way to get Kimi for one of those races.
Yeah,
and not
put Kimi in one of the cars.
Yeah. So one thing I wanted to ask,
Dev, you were going to ask a question before.
Right. So this is for all the viewers and listeners tuning in. The gentleman on the screen actually broke a very difficult, a very arduous record. So 2011 Indian Grand Prix, Jamie Alguersuari, and it's a big man being modest over here. So
I was wondering which one you're talking about.
Yeah, so he went there to Audi R8 and he broke the record. 332.2 kilometers per hour, if I'm not wrong.
What?
Yeah, I mean, we wanted to just kind of beat the top speed record in India because and it had been done in the Toro Rosso by Jamie Alguersuari on the boat. So it wasn't what he did. Obviously, wasn't like an official top speed record. It was just something that was done in a Formula One race and it was officially recorded. So we know that was the official top speed that's been done on Indian soil. So we used that as a reference, and I think that was, I can't remember what that was exactly. But so yeah, we jumped into one of the Audis, we jumped into the R8, found a nice piece of road somewhere and just put my foot down and it was 332 kilometers per hour.
Was it on the
Yamuna 200 miles per hour?
Because the Yamuna Expressway is pretty much empty. Nobody ever uses it, and it's just so long.
It wasn't down south, I believe. It was.
It was in Hyderabad. It was close to Hyderabad. The road wasn't opened yet to public. It was the outer ring road, I think, and I think there was a 7-kilometer stretch that wasn't open to public. So we used that. So we had that leeway for safety as well.
Nice. I'm glad you used that because who knows, at the Yamuna Expressway, people were having aloo patty or watching Bollywood movies.
Exactly.
I'm a Bollywood fan, so yeah.
I mean, I'd be coming over one of those bridges and I'll just come on the other side and there'll be like a picnic across the road. So then there's nothing you can do.
There you go. But that was super. Yeah. Still, congratulations for that. It's 4 years back, but still, it's awesome, man.
Thanks. We're doing some interesting stuff in Jan as well. You'll see.
Oh, nice. Awesome! Hit me up, man.
Yeah. I'll let you.
Is that still the record? Has anybody broken it since?
Officially, no. Unofficially, I don't know. We have a bunch of crazy people with some crazy cars. I don't know. I've seen people post videos on Instagram of them hitting the 300 kilometer per hour mark, and I don't even think it's wise for them to do it, but they do it. But 332, I haven't seen a video yet, so I don't know.
You need that video evidence to prove it. It's your record until then, so.
Yeah, we did it with all the permissions in place.
Yeah, let's hope that F1 doesn't come back to the Bud International Circuit then, because that record could get beat then. But...
Nah, I don't think so. I think we're still too far. They don't have enough space to do it. It's too short a straight, so I think we're safe.
Too short a straight. It's like a kilometre long.
It's like a challenge for Herman Tilke. Can you make it longer? And he will oblige.
Don't challenge him to that, Soumil. You know he will. You've seen his effort with Baku. The next one will be the Thailand or something like that, like a 2 kilometre straight.
Yeah.
That would be
that is something I wanted to ask about, because we do know on this show we do normally talk about Formula One, and I think Dev's mentioned it quite a bit about India not getting a race back at Bud International Circuit. It's unlikely to happen, but is there kind of rumblings about it? Is it likely to happen in the next few years? What's the kind of chatter about that? Is it something that's been mooted or not?
In my opinion, I don't think so. I don't see it coming back in the foreseeable future. The Bud is also facing its own issues financially, so They have their own problems. The other racetracks that are being built, none of them are an FIA Grade 1 spec, so none of them can host Formula One races. So yeah, I would think so. Sorry?
Thank goodness they are not, because then it would just pile on the costs and
Yeah, absolutely.
makes it a huge issue for the promoters as well.
Yeah, and it makes motorsport in India itself far more expensive. So we'd
Exactly.
rather still have it accessible to the locals than to have one race come every year. Look at Malaysia. I think they did the wisest thing by
Exactly.
just stopping Formula One, and now they're making so much more money by hosting so many other events.
Exactly.
Yeah, totally fair enough. Fair enough. So, Mel, is there something you want to ask?
Actually, I'll come back on to the racing part. Now, we saw you compete in the Indian Touring Car Championship last year with Volkswagen, and there's a lot more happening as well. There's a lot more racing with the domestic circuit, as you mentioned. Everything is restarting. With the new circuits coming up, Aditya, do you think it's somewhat of a new dawn for the domestic side of things? Because at this stage, we need the eyeballs. Because if the eyeballs come in, the sponsors will come in, and the whole chain kind of comes in. When what do you reckon is next in that department with the tracks coming in? And are you going to race coming next year in
Yeah,
the
for sure.
domestic
I'd
circuit?
love to. I mean, I think I'd love to race next year, maybe jump into whatever car is available to me. But apart from that, the interesting thing about these racetracks is there's one that's coming up near Bombay, which
Hmm.
is a good thing
Not
because
only yes,
yeah, so that's a great location somewhere in between Bombay and Pune. You have the right crowd. I think there's one somewhere near Bangalore, there's one somewhere near Hyderabad. So you have all the right cities. Delhi has, of course, its own racetrack, its pride and joy. But you have the right cities that have the right audiences. And I think once races start going to these places, you'll see so many more people from these cities actually jumping into race cars. Right now, George obviously doesn't know, but it's motorsport in India is too concentrated to the south. It's like in the UK, if you had just two racetracks and both of them are like 50 kilometers from London for the south, right? No one wants to make the effort to then travel from the north. People are able to do it now, but they're just not enough people. You don't have the race cars up north. You don't have the right facilities up north to conduct any training events. The booth is just far too expensive for you to do anything, because then it becomes it becomes almost inaccessible to most people. No one wants to pay that kind of money. So yeah, this will, I mean, to answer your question, it's going to be great. The eyeballs will definitely increase. We'll definitely have more people participating, which means more families coming to watch, which means more family friends, which means it just kind of, it's
yeah.
like the coronavirus, it just expands.
Happy
This is a
performing.
good expansion, not a bad expansion, though.
not,
So.
not a bad expansion, good expansion. Hopefully we'll have a good
Dev,
doubling
is
race.
something you want to ask?
Right. I want to know when did the fascination with Ayrton Senna start? I mean, of course, I would know the answers, but I really want you to spell it out.
I mean, since I watched my first Formula One race, maybe 92 or 93, because he was the guy who was dominating then, and he had this certain aura around him. When we watched it on TV, it was just, you know, he just seemed like he was a god. And at that age, it was really cool to watch someone like that. So that's when it started. Obviously, it was short lived because 94 was when he had that fatal accident of his. But those memories just stay with you because it's at that age when you start watching. Soumil wasn't even born.
Yeah.
So
Neither was I.
Soumil is not even 18. He's still underage.
Exactly. I'm 17 right now.
He's 17. So he wasn't
So
born then.
that makes me the oldest man on this grid, this eminent grid. Wow, amazing!
You are the Kimi Räikkönen of this room, aren't you, Dev? So.
Still better than being Bernie in that age, but yeah, for sure.
Not old, experienced. That's the difference.
But that's when my fascination started for motorsport and for Senna.
No, it's incredible and it's truly understandable, and I'm really glad that we finally have a movie of the many that many people have
Exactly.
tried. And when I saw the trailer of that clip, I was hooked on, and then I had to see the movie. And
yeah, in fact, one of the best Senna, I would call it a tribute that I've seen, is on BBC's Top Gear when
Oh
Jeremy Clarkson
yes.
was hosting
Oh
it.
yes.
It's just a 10-minute clip, but it'll give you goosebumps.
okay, I'm yet to see.
You should watch it. I don't know if George has seen it, but
I'll find it for you, Dev. It's an excellent little documentary for him. It's brilliant.
So another one I wanted to know. Are there any more tracks other than the Nürburgring which feature on your favorite or the top 5 or top 3 kind of list? Because of course Nürburgring is, one doesn't need to say it's so daunting, but any other tracks which are your favorite?
Yeah, I mean, Macau for sure is up there. The street circuit. Suzuka, I love Suzuka. Is great. A lot of the old school tracks, Spa is great as well. So anything old school, I love it. Any of the new Tilke circuits? No, not really.
I think you would get on with most people on our show, Aditya. That's kind of the consensus that we have as well. Because again, sorry to bring up F1 again, but going to these older tracks, Imola, Nürburgring, where else we've gone this year that we don't normally go. Mugello, that's an old school
Mugello.
circuit as well.
Yeah.
It was really refreshing to see that rather than the same cookie cutter circuits with miles of runoff with no punishment. Those are
Portimao was great.
those are tracks that really. Yeah, Portimao's a great track and it's fairly new. But I think that's probably because Tilke didn't design it. I could be wrong with that though.
No, I don't think it's a Tilke design circuit. It's not even that new. It's reasonably old. It's been around for a few years actually, but it's got some great elevation changes, and I'm not sure if it's a Tilke design. If it is, then it's probably his best, but that's a great circuit. That was on this year's calendar.
Yeah, it was great to see. It was great to see that, definitely.
Also, I think MotoGP happens there, is it?
MotoGP was there this year.
This year, yeah. It was drafted in, basically.
Yeah.
I think they're meant to be going back next year as well, possibly. So it's good to see. Good to see it getting some recognition. It's a track that I'd never heard of before this year, really. I knew there was a circuit in the. Well, yeah, I've heard there was a circuit in the Algarve, but I've never played it in a game. Never seen a race around it.
It's probably one of. I mean, after the Nordschleife, one of the most insane circuits you can drive on. I had the good fortune to drive in 2014 there. Whew. I mean, you need guts. You need big ones. It's the elevation changes, the corner speeds. It's just you have to just keep your foot down and have faith in the car, and just have faith that there's nobody spun around on the other side.
Right. Someday I would love that as a fan. I don't know when, but yeah.
One day, soon.
I would just love to go to a race again. I've missed it.
Mm-hmm.
I've not been in 2 years now.
I mean, you can't really say that.
I'm not sure what's happened to Soumil. I know he's just left, but
no stress.
Aditya, any
particular
favorite moment this year from the Formula One season? I think we should ask a few F1 questions too. You followed it from the start, right?
Any particular moment? I think everybody loved the Bahrain, the Sakir GP, the second one. It was great to watch, heartbreaking at the same time, but great at the same time because Perez won. It was an entertaining race after a certain point. Turkey was superb to watch. I think hats off to Lewis Hamilton. That was probably his best drive ever. The patience that he had, he just waited and waited and waited and didn't put a foot wrong. I think those two. Am I forgetting anything? Monza was good after the restart. Sorry?
Daniel's podiums. At least one of
Daniel's podiums.
Yeah, Nürburgring, yeah.
But he forgot the TV, so I felt bad for that.
Right.
Yeah, Monza was great as well. There are quite a few good races this year. It's good to see.
Even Austria, I think the first couple of races were
quite. Oh yeah, Austria was great. Yeah.
It feels like a century ago now.
I know. It does.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah. It's been a weird old season. It's been short, but it's also felt really long at the same time. It's felt really because all the races have been really fast after one another.
Yeah, I know. That's weird. Yeah.
17 races in 161 days.
It was a real standout season. 2020. I mean, it gave us a lot, far more than what we could have bargained for. Because at the start, everybody's hearts sank because of course, because being pandemic marred, there was no chance that they're gonna get obviously a full-blown season. But then these 17 races, if I have that correct, I mean the memories will last a lifetime.
Yeah, that's true.
Really.
And again, I think it feeds back to not having as many Tilkedromes on the calendar. That's definitely played a part. And I've just looked it up. Herman Tilke did not design the Algarve circuit, so there you go. So we've not got that wrong. We got it right. He didn't do it. So yeah, it'd be nice to see some of those circuits come back, but I don't think they will unless there's a shake of the calendar again.
But Hermann Tilke designed an excellent circuit, the Porsche test track in Leipzig, which is when he was just given the leeway. They just told him, do whatever you want to.
See what you want.
And
I haven't seen it. Should check it out actually.
what's crazy, it's got so many different combinations. We've got a mini carousel, corkscrew from Laguna Seca, a couple of corners from Silverstone. It's all merged up and it's epic, that track.
Yeah, because
more of
he's
a test
taken
track.
all the old school circuits and put it in one, so it's not his
Exactly.
design.
Again, same thing, but they just said, here's the land, do what you want to.
That's quite cool.
I thought that's what they did with Yas Marina though, and Yas Marina's
Oh,
not a
no.
good track.
No, it's terrible. It's
That
just
one.
top
It looks great.
terrible.
Oh, it's terrible to race around.
Yeah. I mean, some of the worst tracks I've ridden on Yas Marina, the track in Korea, Yeongnam,
Ooh, that was a bad one.
Bud is not
Yeah.
great on either.
Sochi.
Yeah.
Sochi, Shanghai is not great to drive on either. You know,
Mm.
and they all have one thing in common. I don't think we need to say that out loud.
We've said it out loud many times, Aditya, don't worry. You won't be the first to say it. To be fair, to his credit though, it's not going to Hermann Tilke run. He has done some great tracks. I do like the Red Bull Ring. He did redesign that. I do like
Okay.
Malaysia. He designed that from scratch.
I don't like
Bahrain, I
Malaysia.
think, is a pretty good track, especially the oval. Like I love that this year.
Oh, it's superb. Super to watch.
Aditya, what do you think of, let's say, if electric cars were to come up with a racing team of their own? Let's say, I mean, if I remember it correctly, Tesla does have something like that. The Tesla is into racing. I think a
Yeah.
part of it is branched out.
So it's a customer program where some people have bought a Tesla Model S and they're designing into a race car. So electric
Yeah.
GT essentially.
Electric GT, yeah. That's
So
what.
let's say hypothetically, if somebody figured out a way to do that in India, would you be keen to participate and go behind the wheels of a full-on electric car and just give it a push?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, why not? Why don't? At the end of the day, that's the future. You may see electric cars start to pick up 2025 onwards, or maybe 2030 onward. Maybe Formula E jumped the gun a little bit, but they are definitely working towards a changing trend. But I would be open to it for sure. You still don't want to lose internal combustion engines. There's a certain charm to it that you don't want to lose.
Yep.
But
For sure.
as a support race or as a second race or as two races on a weekend, would definitely be great to have an electric car race as well as a regular racing as we know it type of race.
So, do you want to ask something?
I guess I've fulfilled all of that today. No, not much. Not much.
Fair enough. I mean, if we don't ask anything else, I guess we could just wrap it up here. We've done a decent amount of time.
Yeah, about 1 hour. Yeah.
One final question from me, if that's cool. Actually, two. So Fernando Alonso is coming back next year. There's going to be a lot of grid upheaval because Ricciardo is going to McLaren, and we all are thrilled about it. At least most of us are. Vettel is there in Aston Martin, and the old man on the grid is still hanging out there. He'll be 42 next year. What particular instance in 2021 you think could make the most noise? Any kind of predictions you have?
I think definitely Alonso in Renault will, but you won't see, as far as results go, I think they'll be quite similar to what they were this year. But what I'd really love to see is Vettel in the Aston Martin and to see how that goes. That, to me, that will probably be the most interesting, the most exciting. Hopefully the Mercs won't be as dominant, but there aren't too many changes that are going to happen between now and the 2021 season. So.
Yeah, it's a bit of a
I think
stopgap
Red Bull
here.
got a decent chance with Verstappen. But
Yeah.
I would love Max to win a couple of few races and just bust some balloons there and just make it up more exciting, because otherwise you just have the same one-way street, with all due respect. And what Mercedes have done, nobody needs to doubt it. It's fantastic, and the great Lewis, and it's just awesome. But I think a Verstappen win here and there, I personally feel it just spices up things a bit more, and it would be amazing to see Daniel win a couple of races. Who knows?
Yeah, for sure. But
yeah,
hopefully in 2021, but 2022 will definitely shake things up. That's one season that I'm looking forward to.
Indeed.
Yeah, especially with the cost cap and stuff like that coming in properly, it could be interesting. I won't rule out McLaren from winning, actually, like you said, Dev, because they're getting Mercedes engines as well next year, so they're definitely on the up.
Yeah.
They're on the up. And Lando, let's not forget him. I mean, the last lap
He's really
overtake
good,
of
yeah.
the season, was it the curtain raiser at Spielberg where it happened?
Yeah,
Who-
yeah.
who saw
Last lap
it?
Lando.
Yeah, incredible last lap Lando. Yeah, he should start his own podcast.
Yeah, that was incredible. That it's, again, like you said, Soumil, it seems like a year ago. It seems like ages ago,
Exactly.
but it was like 6 months ago.
I know.
You want to get K-Mag for X1? I'm just thinking aloud here.
Yeah,
He'll
why, why not? I mean, there's so many options we have. And like I said, when we start to expand the teams, we have so many more available seats. So, no, for sure. Now that we've done a season, there is interest. People have kind of read about it as well. People know about it from around the world. So, obviously, I'm not going to tell you what cars that we're going to be running. I know. But that will obviously interest quite a few drivers to come and participate.
brilliant,
Well,
brilliant.
Sergio Perez is available too. So,
Yeah, yeah. I think he would be the first call, being the Force India Connect for so many years.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Yeah, completely forgot. Or
And the
Nico.
super sub. I was about to say the super sub.
Oh, of course, Hulkenberg, yeah.
Most non-Hulk like Hulkenberg. I mean, when they say the Hulk for sure, but he's such a fine person. Anything but the Hulk. But yeah, really,
Yeah, that's true.
that'd be awesome.
Well, he'll finally get that podium maybe if he joins X1. Who knows? He's been
Win.
waiting long enough for it, bless
Finally
him.
get the
So,
win. Yeah.
He was so close. I remember, I think it was Germany 2019 or 2018 when it was raining, and he was, I think, on his way to P3. I think he was on his way to P3. It was, and then he just spun out, and it was crazy. It was at Hockenheim Ring. I remember clearly. Yeah, he was really unlucky.
Yeah.
Sometimes
no,
I
he's
do
been a
think
lot of
that,
them.
that the music of Lost But One, it's almost like a silent tribute to him. It just falls into place. Nico, yet so close, yet so far. That's just my personal take. With all due regards.
Yeah.
Yeah, very talented, but also very unlucky. But at the same time, made some mistakes that cost him podiums. That's ultimately what he's going to be remembered for in F1, unless he makes a comeback. But there you go. That's racing theory. It's a cruel mistress at the best of times. So
That's one good way to put it.
Yeah.
right, I think we should probably wrap it up there. We've gone about an hour or so, unless you guys want to ask anything else. Okay. So we normally broadcast this show live on Facebook, so make sure to like the F1 Chronicle on Facebook to see the show early. We're available on Amazon Music as well as YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Music, Omni Studio, and Pocket Cast. Just search for the F1 Grid Talk and all of those. We've got a big fat catalogue of shows now, over 80 episodes. Usually race reviews, qualifying analysis, that sort of thing. But we also have some interview episodes like this one, like we had with Mario Sola of Pirelli, then documentary style ones like Ayrton Senna and Tiregate, that sort of thing too. We've got a subreddit, F1 Grid Talk, go on there to join the conversation. Go to our Patreon as well, search for the F1 Grid Talk to search for better mics, lights, and recording equipment. Thank you very much for joining us, lads. Really do appreciate it. It's been a great talk.
Thanks, George. Thanks, Soumil and Dev. It's been great.
It's a pleasure to have you here, mate. Pleasure.
Yep, really enjoyed having you on. And interacting with you for the first time as well, Soumil. I've heard you so much on other podcasts, but it's good to have you here as well. Didn't quite hear that. I think someone might be muted or it might be my internet connection. Go donate to our Patreon. Give me a better internet connection. And we will be back in the new year with more content for you guys. Some off-season stuff like doing some lists or maybe some more interviews like this. We will update you on the F1 Chronicles social media pages in due course. But until then, thank you very much for watching or listening, and goodbye.
Bye, guys.
See you guys.